Welcome to Puzzling Company, your home for at-home puzzles and mysteries. Here are your hosts, Jared and Zach.
Well, welcome back to Puzzling Company. We are actually in our very first episode of digital games.
That intro gets me so hyped, like way hyped.
Yeah, no, the new intro for our digital experiences is fantastic, but we are so excited you guys are here with us. This will be episode 2 of season 2, and today we're going to be talking about 11 puzzles unboxing the mind of a cryptic killer.
That was a mouthful and you nailed it. And just so you are, this is Puzzling Company, right? Different sound, same us, right?
Yes. Still me.
I just don't want people to be confused that the basic Puzzling Company score is just so classic that now we come in with this hip digitized version with a beat, and that can be jarring.
I'm totally not a robot.
Robot Zach, gosh, back again. Goodness. But yes, I'm just excited. I think that's why I'm kind of all over the place right now, because the song gets me hype. Season 2 gets me hype. There's a lot of hype right now, Zach.
There is. Well, we're going to be getting into the hype of 11 puzzles here in just a little bit.
Hey friends, Jared here asking you to join our Patreon community. Monthly support is a great way to help us in our mission of growing the at-home puzzle and mystery world. So check out our show notes or go to patreon.com and search Puzzling Company and find the membership level that's right for you.
Well, welcome back from that break. This is Puzzling Company. If you don't remember, I know it's been a little bit, no one freak out, but we are in the first section. In this section of the show, this is kind of just a part for me and Jared to review the game that we're talking about, which, like we said, is unboxing the mind of a cryptic killer from 11 Puzzle.
First ever digital game.
Yes, very first digital game we'll be covering. We are very excited. But in this section, like I said, we're going to be talking about the things we liked about the experience, as well as what we think are rooms for improvement.
Absolutely.
For the game. You know, no game's perfect, and obviously it's an opinion, so don't get too mad at us if we have a little bit of a differing opinion.
Blow us up on Insta. Let's go. That music's got me like ready to
At
go.
me on Instagram if you want to fight.
At me.
Please don't. But yeah, we're going to get jumping right into it. So Jared, would you like to kind of explain what 11 Puzzles Unboxing the Mind of a Cryptic Killer is?
Absolutely. It is a web-based game, so you don't need any type of specialized equipment to play this game, which is really great. The website says that you just need to split into 2 teams, and the reason they do that is because it is what we call a split team format, which, if you're unfamiliar with that, it just simply means that you as an individual or your team only has half of the information or half of the objectives, and it is just a high cooperative environment where you're using communication along with your puzzle-solving skills to bring together the entire experience. And again, you'll split into 2 teams. This is a really good syncing game. Things are happening at the same time. And then you'll just hop on your favorite audio, Discord, Zoom, whatever you want to play this game and enable your communication.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to like about this game.
There is a lot.
I love that this was our first digital game because I like starting with really good, really fun games. And this was the perfect place, in my opinion, to start.
Yeah, I agree.
What'd you like about it, Zach?
I think the thing I liked first about 11 Puzzles, specifically in this game, was the art style. I thought it was really cool. It has like this kind of cartoony style, kind of, I'm going to say it, detective-esque.
Yeah, it kind of has like a little bit of a noirish feel, noirish feel.
Yeah. A little bit of that feel in this game with the narrative of the game and the context of the game. It is mostly inside this like never-ending box, it feels like.
Yes.
But it is interesting, like having that aesthetic and then the art style of like the cartoonish to fit in these like very realistic items with this kind of cartoon feeling, and there being the whole cryptic killer aspect. So it feels like there's a mix of different styles, but then the art style feeling it in with the cartoon worked well.
And I particularly liked it with the items we were interacting with. Like it all fit into the world that they were building.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see that it wasn't stock images. Like this was all dreamed up, in-house programmed, coded. It was slick.
Yeah.
From like a UI visual art style. I really liked it. And every time that I've seen it before we actually got to play it, I've just remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I want to check that out. Like that looks like a lot of time. One of, I don't think we've talked about this before, but I love cooking shows. Do you like cooking shows?
I'm not as big of a fan of cooking shows as probably you are, but they're enjoyable at times.
Like Gordon Ramsay yelling at people just gets me jazzed.
I haven't watched like the British Bake Off or any of those types of shows.
I have not watched that either. I'm more of a
but I have
Hell's
watched
Kitchen.
Okay, yeah, I've seen Hell's Kitchen. Or,
Master Chef.
Yeah.
Master Chef Junior. I love watching that with my kids. But one of the things that he always says about food, and I think it's true for games too, is that you eat with your eyes before you eat with your mouth. Like presentation matters.
Yeah.
And I think that's particularly true with this game. It is inviting. It gets you excited before you've ever played the game to play the game.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge win, and it carried throughout super well.
Yeah.
What else was vibing with you on this game?
Yeah, what else I really liked about this game was the tasks and puzzles that they incorporate into the experience. And what I mean by that is it's not just doing like classic style puzzles the entire time. There's like tasks to complete as well. So you're not doing just like, oh, I'm solving this puzzle or this riddle. There's like things that I can mess with, interact with within the UI to kind of solve. Like my task is to find this item or this information. And then I get to like kind of manipulate the space or the items that I'm working with to try to find things.
Yes. I liked it a lot because it broke the game up.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I kind of think about it in terms of diversity is like when we played crew versus crew, you had that diversity of, we had puzzles, we had game show type things, we had tasks. And I thought that was really helpful to the game flow. Could you, without spoiling anything, could you give us an example? Because I want to be specific on like what the difference between experiencing a task and experiencing a puzzle is.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you, I'm not going to spoil it, but I'll just tell you one of the things that I would say was like a task for us. There was this, without giving it away, a classic gaming console kind of puzzle where you and I had to do things at the same time to complete the task at hand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a couple, they just don't do that one time.
No.
And the way that I would say that differentiates a little bit from a puzzle is there's nothing to solve. There may be something at the beginning of that interaction that you need to solve, but once you've solved it, you're just doing it.
Yeah.
Or you may need to do a task in order to unlock something, but the nature of what you're doing is not puzzling or making a connection. It's purely almost physical.
Yeah.
Is how, in as much as you can say that in a digital environment.
Yeah.
And I loved that because it made the experience variety filled, diverse, any of those words where I wasn't just puzzling. And I love puzzling, but I love when I get to do a variety of things in a game. The last thing that I would say I really enjoyed, and I think this is a huge compliment, is we've played a lot of split experiences, Zach, like whether they've been video games, board games. This is a really cool format, but I'm trying to remember one that's been better balanced. In terms of, I didn't always have the information, you didn't always have the information. Sometimes I had the task, sometimes you had the task. They made it to where it didn't feel lopsided depending on which role you took on.
Yeah, I think the last game I can think of that was not digital that we played was probably Taco Tuesday. That did a really good job of giving like half and half, where it always felt like we both had to work together. There was no like clear, one team sits there and waits while the other team solves their own task or puzzle.
But the difference was in Taco Tuesday is we were mostly doing the same thing.
But just having half the info.
Right, just
I agree.
altered.
In terms of a game where we have completely different things, we're not the exact same puzzle, but we're just we have half information or half tasks.
Yes.
It was very well balanced, yes.
Because I've played some games in split experience, I've designed some as well, where it just became lopsided.
Weird flex, but okay.
That was a shot at me and Skinner's box and how just terribly lopsided.
Not a flex?
Not a flex. How terribly one-sided that game felt at times. But that is I think a tremendously hard balance to strike.
Sure.
And I think with the hint system as well, being tiered and you have the answers, like they're just, I don't feel like there was much room to get stuck or to feel like you weren't the person doing something.
Yeah, agreed.
It was very, very well. And I imagine they would have had to gone through a lot of testing to nail that, because it was very apparent when we were done with the game. We were like, that flow was on point.
Yeah, it felt really good.
At least for our experience. And I can't imagine that people would find a whole lot of differentiation in that.
Yeah.
Zach, I think we've agreed this is a really great game.
Oh, agreed. Yeah.
Let's move into some room for improvements in what we saw. And as I'm thinking about the ones that I'm thinking, there wasn't anything egregious. It more felt like there were some missed opportunities, or honestly, just some like, if they would run with this a little bit more, I think it could make the experience better.
Oh, I completely agree.
Where would you start that conversation?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would point to would be the characters. So you do get to choose a character. There's two different detectives that both actually have backstories in the game. So you get to choose if you're the male or female detective, and it gives you some backstory and it lets you hear what they sound like. But then after that and the intro, essentially they become kind of like a minor part of the game. It's not like they say anything else in terms of, you can click on them and they'll actually kind of talk to you.
Yeah, that was cool. You did get to like click on items, and
you could have them speak it out to you or like give you like a hint through their audio, but it's very minor and it doesn't really help.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It was just like side commentary that you didn't have to have, but it didn't really add anything.
Yeah, because we tried it early on, and then I tried it like halfway through the game. And then essentially after that, not against it, I didn't find it useful, or it was a missed opportunity in terms of having the characters interact with like because the Cryptic killer shows up a little bit in the game and kind of says a few of the same audio lines. I say same, like audio lines saying that you've kind of continued through the experience. But then the characters don't really play off that, or I don't really hear them like interact with that character. Maybe I missed some opportunities. So, if the creators were like, hey, like, you guys just missed something, that's totally on us, for maybe not clicking all the time to see what they would have truly said. But it just didn't feel like it was a missed opportunity in terms of having the characters be more important.
Yes, that's a great way of saying that.
Or, in my opinion, and maybe I didn't notice this, like I said, because this is all just our personal opinion in terms of our experience. It would have been interesting if they had like their own things they're really good at, and like that played into why they did certain puzzles over the other person.
I totally agree. And that's the point I wanted to drive home, is when we've taken on the role of a character in other games, that's meant something. It means that player had powers, advantages, and I think they can play with that. But all that it really meant for this game is, well, you're Bill, I'm Julia, and this is the track because we chose Bill and Julia that we're going to be on. You're going to be on track A. I'm going to be on track B. And I feel like, especially with as good as the characters look, like we mentioned, the art style, I just wanted to see them more involved in the storytelling of the game. And I think that rolls a little bit into what I'm going to say for the second room for improvement is I struggled with the fact of the lack of exploration given what was happening. If that makes sense, because most of this story, you're in a box. And when you listen to the interview coming up in our next section, they tell you they want to make it feel like an escape room. Escape rooms happen in limited places. I totally get that. But I feel like if we had a more dynamic environment for the characters to be in, then we could really see them come alive. We could have room for puzzles, breaks, some narrative, come back to them, or just some more engaging ways to have those both. But I wanted more than just going through a never-ending box, I guess is the way that I would put it.
Because if I remember correctly, it's like a crate or something that shows up that they know like it's related to the killer that they've been hunting.
Right.
So they have like background experience with this character and find that they're still around, and then as you go through the crate, more things get open, you find more things. It feels like it never ends. And I think they did a good job of it was very interesting seeing how many things were in this box.
Oh, yes.
And I did like the exploration of the things that are in the specific box, but I agree that the characters don't, I just imagine visually, if I were like looking at this as a movie or something, it's literally two characters standing side by side looking at a box.
Right.
The entire game, except for the end part.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, like with the urgency that was given in the game And probably just like some of us bringing in like the type of story related to other stories of the same type. I just feel like they have room. I'm not upset with how the box was portrayed, but I would love to be moving through a city. I just wanted a more dynamic exploration experience because the rest of the game was so good. The gameplay was so good that it felt lackluster in comparison to like where we were in the context of our game.
Agreed. They also do, like, to mention, we only did play the unboxing one. I believe they have another one, like a lab.
Coming out, yes.
Yeah, coming out. I hope. Obviously, I have no idea what's involved in it, but it would be really cool if they do explore that more in that one because it seems like it's not limited to a box.
Yes.
So it'd be very interesting if they are like in a full lab, like exploring the lab or moving throughout it or different sections to do different types of puzzles with the characters.
Secret passages. And I feel like there's a lot more to explore. And again, I want context for this. This is their very first game.
Yes.
So I'm kind of glad that that's where they started because now the sky is the limit for what they can explore, the worlds that they can take us to. And again, I'm just comparing it to the excellent that we have that just felt subpar comparatively. And I think they have a lot of room that they can take it in the future. So I'm excited about it. Lastly, I didn't feel a great connection between the puzzles and the narrative. It felt like there were puzzles, but they didn't always move the story, or they just were kind of puzzles that were interesting in split format, but weren't really driving along anything narrative for me.
So it was like shoehorning puzzles, like in terms of thematically?
Yeah, they weren't bad puzzles. There's not a bad puzzle in this whole game. There's some really fantastic puzzles in this game, but there were some, I think we even had some conversations, we were like, why does the Cryptic killer really in love with fish? Like I didn't always see the link between the story that they were telling and the puzzle material that we were working through.
Sure. I think, narratively, I can agree with that. There was a lot of them that I think they do answer that question. Like there's like an article or there's another item that kind of fits with it to some degree. And I think maybe part of it just being the killer, it's supposed to be, I wouldn't say like random, but it is supposed to be like this whole idea of it's just kind of random things you have to make the connection of.
Sure.
But it did feel like some of it was like, that's an interesting like style of puzzle to be randomly in this box. Why would the killer do, it's a killer and he's cryptic and, you have no idea what his real thought process is in terms of doing it that way. But it does feel weird being like, I've never thought I would see this in this box. But hey, let's go for it.
Let's roll with it. And I think that's what also, if we're giving some more praise about the game is so good that these things feel very minor that we're talking about in our room for improvement.
Oh, because I enjoyed them. It is being honest and looking at it and being like, that's a little weird. But then when I did the puzzle, I was like, okay, that's really cool though. Like yes. I still enjoyed it a lot.
And I think that's a good point. I think the interactions are really carrying in this game.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about in other episodes, like if you do something really well, it covers up areas that you may not be as strong in. And I think that's true of this game. I can't wait to see what comes next because we just had a blast playing this. And I will say, I think we've been a little harder on the narrative than we have been on the gameplay. I will say the narrative, with some things that they did near the end of the game, kicked back up. Like it finished strong narratively. It was just that the middle part, in terms of where we were, the characters, and kind of some of the puzzles, but it really ramped up going into the end game.
Yeah.
It had a fun way to mess with the timer, I'll say, and really create a sense of urgency, I'll say. Whereas if you were just blowing through this game and you're a puzzle expert, when you get to the end, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. And then moving out towards the opposite of the game, it had time, how many, it was just a really well-built system But overall, I loved this game. I thought it was a lot of fun. If you love split experiences, this is an easy pickup for me.
Yeah.
Because it looks great. It plays great. It has so much momentum, I think, moving into its next title. Anything that you would say in closing out our section, Zach? Anything that we missed on, didn't touch on?
No, I think we covered most things about the game. It was a great one to start with in terms of our digital games.
Oh yeah, no regrets for this being our first digital
It was also
game.
cool, like just discussing this a little bit. It is interesting because this is the first game that we played split. Not in terms of, okay, we've played split games, but I mean, we were at completely different locations. You're
Yes.
at your house and I think I was at my house. So it was really cool having that interaction as well, because we're not usually used to that when we play our games, at least for the podcast. We've played some digital online games and have done that experience to some degree.
Yes, we've done stuff like that, but I agree in terms of like thinking about, you're thinking about the review while you're playing the game. We've never had that before. I'm really excited that we made the decision to start including some digital games as we move forward. But that's going to wrap us up for our first section. Hang on, we got Puzzles to the People coming at you next.
Solve puzzles, write reviews, win prizes. It's time for Puzzles to the People.
Puzzlers, we need your help. We need you to leave us a 5-star review so that more people can find us. It doesn't matter if you prefer the black and electric green of Spotify or the medley of pink and blue at Apple. Go to wherever you listen to this podcast, click that 5-star rating, and let's grow our community together. Welcome back to Puzzling Company. Here in the middle section of our podcast, we do a lot of different things. We talk about things that are important to the games that we play. Sometimes we talk about reviews. If you're one of our core Patreon members, hopefully you'll be coming on the show to share in our conversation with us, which I'm super excited about, to get to share more with the people that we have out there. So you should definitely think about becoming one of our core members. But today, I want to talk more, and I kind of want to section out, Zach, the digital games and kind of categorize the digital games that we'll be covering. We mentioned in our last episode of season 1 kind of why we thought digital games were important, so I don't want to rehash that. But I think it's important to build kind of an environment or a landscape for some of the things that we're going to be covering. That work for you?
Sure.
Okay. So I would say for us that there's 3 categories of games that we will be covering, and I want to hear if you agree or disagree with me.
Okay.
One is what we've played today, which is it can be any format, but it's digital, most likely web-based, and on demand.
Okay.
Which means I can buy it, play it immediately. And I think the other big thing is that there's no outside presence in our game beyond you and me.
Okay. Yeah.
How would you, because one of the other ones I want to talk about is video games. How do we make that distinction? How is this web-based game? Would you call this a video game? Because we're going to talk about video games, and I'm excited to have some of our first ones on later this quarter. But what to you stands out as kind of the differentiation?
Between a web-based, like at home, like escape room style game versus a video game?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. This same format, this and We Were Here, very similar games, split team, but why do we call this a digital game? And why do we call We Were Here a video game?
I think it's mostly the platform that it's used on, specifically, just because We Were Here is mainly on Steam and is like a video game in terms that it has the classic video game style, and you play it with people online. It's the same thing with the, I'm going to say, browser-based or digital games that we play. There's a lot of video games that are they're web-based. I mean, that's what it used to be in the past too. Like, I remember being like in school and playing certain games on the computer on, a browser, playing Balloons Tower Defense and stuff on Cool Math Game, all those type of things. It was fun. I remember doing that. So, I mean, those were video games, but they're on a browser. I think what I make the distinction between the two is that it's mainly how it's presented. In my opinion, I think with those types of games, it's mostly presented as being like an escape room at home. So I immediately put it as that. Like I categorize as, this is like an at-home or a digital escape room, because they almost sell it more like that. Sometimes. Yes. I'm not saying that's what 11 Puzzles purely did, but that's what a lot of them do. They're basically like, this is an at-home puzzle and mystery, or this is a at-home escape room digitally that you can play. And then there's video games that clearly go, this is a video game that is about puzzles or is action based or whatever it ends up being. So I think that's like the distinction for me specifically in terms of what they are presented as. But I think they're both games at the end of the day. I mean, board games are the same as video games in terms of they're entertainment-based things that are made to spend time like messing with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I agree with you on the platform, although I think that's becoming more and more of a blurred line.
Oh, agreed.
I think it was way easier 15 years ago to tell me what is a video game.
Yeah.
Right? Because I also think about, you say platform. To me, for the longest time, there were video games, which meant that you had a controller and you were in front of your TV.
Yep.
And there was a computer game, which means technically you could have a controller, but it was mostly mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
And then those worlds now are almost completely synced. Very rarely, unless there is a contract in place to keep a title on a specific game system.
I mean, there's games on phones. I mean,
yeah, it's
very blurred. I guess it's still a thing of presentation, though. I think
yes.
Video games very much present themselves as being a video game, and I think most like at-home escape room style games present themselves as escape room style games.
As digital escape games.
So, because it's easier for them to advertise it when they do escape rooms mostly, or like that's their audience they're hitting for.
Right.
While video games are like, this is a video game.
And I think that's the other catch here is like there's kind of this mantra of like no extra equipment needed.
Yeah.
Play it on your phone, play it on your browser. Most people have that. Video games can be very limiting, again, based on a number of different factors.
Agreed.
And I don't know that necessarily you could say cost of production, things of that nature, but I don't know. I've played some terribly crappy video games and some really wonderful digital games. So I don't know that's that much of a factor. The other thing that I think is really interesting is I would say that a video game you have ownership of, whereas a digital game, you're more so paying for like a ticket.
Agreed. Yeah. It's definitely being able to play it multiple times or having I would almost say it's replayability.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of digital like escape room style games that it would be very weird to play again. Or you would have to pay to play it again and how it's formatted. While video games, you can be played multiple. Now, there's some video games that you don't play 2 or 3 times. They're not really made to do that. I mean, you can, but you don't. You experience it one time, and you know most of the game. Yeah, I completely agree. I think you can there's definitely more ownership when it's discussing a video game versus like a digital game.
Yeah, because these 11 puzzles, for example, you purchase a code, you play it, you can't play it again unless you want to pay for that entire experience.
Yeah.
So that is really interesting. We talked about cost in our last episode. We may have to revisit that down the line in specificity towards digital games,
digital experiences, stuff like that. Yeah.
Because it is a little different. Now we've talked about 2 categories, and I want to touch on the third category, which is this concept of a live game. Most of these games have a GM or a live character or a live avatar.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably where you and I have the least amount of experience. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think I've played a few, and they were like escapes and stuff like that, or like when like Jared, I know you had ran a few at a time, and like you and I had like learned them.
Yes,
and I had played some, so I've done those. But outside of that, I think I played like one escape room avatar style, but that's it.
Yeah, and it was really a boom, and there was some really cool stuff, some amazing games that we're hoping to do later this year that do have Avatar live games. But let's talk about the difference between those. Again, I definitely wouldn't call a live digital game anywhere near something to a video game.
Yeah.
It feels very different. What factors are we talking about now?
I think it's now even more adjacent to an escape room or like a show, because it is specifically a one-time event that you pay for a ticket to experience. Like, I want to say it's a show, because you do have like a character or like a room host or a GM that kind of talks with you and sets up the parameters, and you play and you get to experience it through this avatar. And a lot of them are escape roomy. I mean, there are some that are literally just digital escape rooms. Like, it is this space that they have physically, they have an avatar that goes experience it for you, and you just watch and you just tell them what to do.
Yes.
They are very different. And there's obviously even less ownership. It's actually completely zero ownership other than the experience you get to have for that hour to 2 hours.
Yes, I agree. It feels like it is, like you said, fusing more with a theatrical world.
Yeah.
And it really is going to allow you, I think, again, we haven't played a whole lot of them, to engage the narrative. But those are kind of the three categories that we're putting these games into: our digital web-based games, video games, and then what we would call live or live avatar games. Here's what I want to know from you, Zach, is if I asked you to give what you think, and I think we'll revisit this after a year. I think this will be fun because I think we have a lot of experience, you and I, in video games.
Mm-hmm.
We have a medium amount of experience in digital style games. We don't have a whole lot of experience playing avatar games.
Yeah.
I think near the end of the year, maybe in our year-end wrap-up, we'll ask ourselves what we've learned in the year. But what do you perceive the advantages of? Give me one advantage for each of those three categories.
Ooh, okay. This is interesting. I think that Avatar or like GM assisted style like games have the highest potential in immersion.
Ooh, okay.
If you have a very good GM, I think, or an avatar, I think it could feel really great. I think they can really play into the character or the experience or interact with the thing so you feel like it's almost you to some degree. I think they can make it a fun experience or show, right? Especially depending on like the game itself and the theming, all that. I think what video games can do is I'm going to say it's most of the ownership part that really feeds into it, because it's yours and you can play as much as you want, but it's the replayability. It's letting yourself play it once, and then if you want to go through it, and especially games where there's more than meets the eye, you can replay it and learn something new or see like, oh, that's the connection that I didn't see the first time.
Sure.
You get that chance of the rewind almost.
Yeah,
While in
absolutely.
other games, if you mess up and the game moves on, you unfortunately don't, I mean, you know what you messed up, but you don't get to go like see it again, or you move on from it and you didn't really, while if we went and replayed like We Were Here, right, or a game like that, we could switch roles and almost see the experience and play it completely again and have that fun replayability aspect, right? While in the other games, it's a one-time thing. Like once we played it, it's over. Unless we wanted to pay money again, we would have to experience it all over again from a different role. The digital games have I think the best advantage of simplicity. A lot of the times it's usually just, here's a code, log in, it's all on the browser. There's no like downloading extra things.
Yes.
While video games, I think video games has, if I had to think of a potential, like, I'm not going to say room for improvement because they're video games, but a downside to video games is some of them require you to download all this stuff potentially, which most don't to a high degree, but it is downloading a game and finding out all this stuff and potentially learning keybinds.
Hold on to that because I want to come back, and that's what I want to talk about before the end. Is I want to talk about where we think each is gonna not add up. But okay, so those are your three. You said for Avatar that you think there's the most room for immersion.
I think it is the highest like skill. It's like floor and ceiling.
Yes.
It could either be the greatest in terms of immersion and entertainment or the worst if you have a really bad avatar or GM.
Someone leading your game live.
Correct,
yeah.
yes.
And then you said for video games that you felt like the advantages were
purely replayability and ownership.
Okay. And then for digital, you said simplicity.
I mean, it's usually like you can do this on your phone or on your laptop and pull it up anywhere and just easily communicate with your friend online and boom, that's it.
Okay, here's where I come in, and then let's jump into the disadvantages.
Okay.
For our live games, I don't know if I agree with you on the immersion, but I think there is a lot of room for narrative, and I think there's a lot of room for adaptive gameplay. When you have a human versus a computer operating your game, I agree there's room for error, but there's also room for really cool things to happen, for different tracks to happen, for it to feel really alive.
Yeah.
because you're using technology, but what's ahead of that technology is someone actively manipulating that. And I think even just from seeing some and reading reviews from other sites, people have really run with that. So I think that's the big advantage there, is an adaptable person to create a really memorable experience. For video games, you're talking about the ability to put in so much, I think, like world building, because I'm thinking of some of the games, some of my favorite games, when you can actually see the world. Like if you're talking about like Breath of the Wild, like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that's a amazing world that you're playing in. Or just think of some of your bigger world games that are out there. It's like, whoa, like I think the graphical power behind some of those games lends to what I would argue might be the most immersive for me, because I just get lost in that. And so I'm making that, I would argue that might, for me at the beginning of this, that's what feels the most immersive. Some of my favorite video games, some of the best puzzle games that I would call a video game, the immersion factor is just out the wazoo, because you're able to do so much narrative, so much graphical, and everything just molds together, and you kind of forget what's going on. I've had those games where it's like it's 4:00 in the morning. Like, what am I doing still playing this?
Yeah, no, I don't want to fully go against what I said earlier, but I from what you're saying so far, I agree with you, and I would retake back my statement in terms of, I think what I meant more than it being purely immersive in terms of like the avatar is I think they can create memorable experiences and like really feed into it. That's, I think, like a really bad online game can be almost saved by a really good person.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of
I'm gonna
putting
be
it.
brutal. There are games that I've played online Avatar that the quality of the items in it, I'm gonna be honest with you, Jared, are not that great. But the person playing it or avataring it made it okay in terms of like they save it.
Right.
And I completely agree on that. I do believe that like video games can have the most immersion the way you're presenting it. Because I mean, some of my favorite games, including the ones that you've already presented, like, you know, I play a lot of MMOs, but like Final Fantasy 14 are like, wow, you know, I'd say more Final Fantasy 14 just because it's more of like a cinematic or socially based. Like some of the visuals that in the world building that is that game
it's crazy.
I mean, I've showed you some of the stuff and it's insane what they can do.
It is. And then my last one for digital is, I would say it has the most potential to further the ARG world.
Okay.
Because the internet is real. It's something we interact with every day. And I think that when you are playing a good digital game, probably the immersion has higher opportunities in the other two sections. I could be proved wrong, right? These are just my thoughts right now. But I feel like some of the digital games that I would enjoy are ones that kind of push me in the same vein that like Hack Forward or Society of Curiosities does, where we're in the present, like we're in this reality.
Yeah.
We're in the real world. Things are happening in the real world. I think that's where digital web-based games, because we're so familiar with that why not weave a game into something that we're so familiar with?
Sure.
Where do you think the disadvantages are on some of these?
I mean, I still think it is, for specifically Avatar, it is the idea of having someone run it.
So I'm going to butt in because I think I'm with you. I think it's this high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Like it's either going to knock it out of the park
or be really rough
or be the thing that breaks the immersion.
It makes me not enjoy it.
Yes.
I agree.
I totally agree with you. I think it takes special people to pull those experiences off.
It's hard. I don't really have many negatives for video games, at least off the top of my head. I think it's mostly a idea of being limited by the experience itself. There's no potential, like usually most video games are made in a very specific format and you follow it, and there's not a lot of like flexibility. It's kind of just how it goes. There are games where their choices matter. There's a lot of those style games where it's like make your choice and then that matters, but then there's not a lot of space for you to be creative. It's usually pretty like set out for you, and it's you making decisions or actions. So I'd say it's disadvantage maybe, but I don't have a lot for video games. And then for browser or like the digital, like web-based ones, I think it's just hard if they try to go. I think it's harder to get immersive unless they keep it realistic. Like you said, like almost blending it into this. It's right now and it's something that you mess with all the time. But if they try to do something that's not, I'm going to put it as if they try to do fantasy-esque or make it something where there's supposed to be like this world building and a lot to it, I think it's harder to achieve that.
Yes. Okay, this is an interesting one for me on video games. And I think people may disagree with me a lot. I think the disadvantage of most video games is time for completion.
Okay.
The older I get, the more I am enjoying games that I can complete in 1 or 2 sittings.
I mean, that makes sense. You have less time to like put into a video game. So you want to find a game. You're like, okay, I can do this in 5 hours. And like one night when you have like time, you want to play it, or it's like a couple hours instead of, like I play games that are mostly like hundreds of hours.
Yes.
Or they don't really ever end. And I just enjoy that as a free time of all, like I can always just keep investing in this same character doing almost never ending things.
Absolutely.
For entertainment. While you're more like, I want to play a story that has a 3-hour experience and then it's done.
Yes.
And I can step away entirely.
I'll give 2 examples of 2 video games that I'm playing right now.
Okay.
One is if you're familiar with The Witness. The Witness, if you don't know about this game, is a really wonderful puzzle game that runs on a single mechanic that's edited and adjusted and really well used throughout the game. But that game is 80 hours minimum to completion. When I found that out, I don't think I'll finish that game.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the space in my life to be able to do that. Doesn't mean it's not a good game, but if I had known that on the front end, I probably would never have even picked it up. Another game that I'm playing right now is a really cool puzzle platformer called The Pedestrian.
Okay.
And that game I'm playing in spurts, but I know based on reading that, there's probably 8 hours of game time total.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the games that I'm more interested in these days because I enjoy a full narrative arc, if there is one. And I think that's a disadvantage. And I think a lot of video games are discovering that is that gamers used to demand this, Skyrim multi tens of hours experiences to feel like they got value if they went and bought it for $50-$60 on the opening day. But now with the advent of mobile gaming, I feel like there is putting a lot into a small period of time has a lot of advantages.
I don't want to go into this subject because I feel like it's going to be a very long discussion of that. I get where you come from, but I agree that there are a lot of people, I think in your age and older, that's completely true.
Watch yourself.
Old man. While me, young man, I just feel like most games still... I do agree that most mass market games, in terms of like ones that I think of that go to most consoles or Steam, a lot of them are in the like 6 to 10 hours for their narrative part.
Yes.
But there are still a lot of games that go, you can play this for as long as you want, but most of the narrative part of it ends at like a sitting.
And that's what I'm saying. To get through the narrative, that's what I mean. I agree with you. Like, I played Halo. I was a big Halo player when I was younger.
I used to play all the Call of Duty campaigns.
And I would play those games, online multiplayer for hours.
Yeah.
But for this, I feel like for me to get through a narrative, and if you come out and you're like above 20 hours worth of narrative, right now where I'm at in my life, I'm just like.
So you're saying you wouldn't play Final Fantasy 14 online?
I would not play Final Fantasy 14.
You're dumb. That's it. You missed a great story. Unlucky.
Let me move to digital experiences and where I feel like there are disadvantages. I think it's what the advantages I said of the other 2 are. It finds its limitations, I think, in its ability to move you narratively somewhat.
Yeah.
And in just its ability to graphically output a world.
Agreed.
That doesn't mean that I think most of what we have scheduled this year is digital games, and I'm very excited. But if we're being honest about what's great about these type of games and what's that, like purely web-based digital games have some struggles. And the other thing is most of those games are just point and clicks. That's the other part. Yep. Your agency, I'm glad we got into this because I did not think of this. Your agency in point and click or web-based games is often lower than it is in the other style of games. And I think that can be a weakness of those games as well. Suffice to say, we're going to have games of all of these different formats, and it might even be fun to engage with some of you out there about like, are there more categories, subcategories? They're all still going to be puzzle games. We're not, all of a sudden just going to be playing World of Warcraft. I'm sorry, Zach. A puzzle game.
I don't really play much World of Warcraft, so it's okay.
But that's really going to wrap us up for this section. We're super excited about our digital episodes. You'll always know that because you'll hear our new intro music at the beginning of every episode. So get excited. Questions for creators coming at you next.
There are some really awesome people who make the puzzles we love to solve. This is Questions for Creators.
Jared here again, asking you to keep your eyes peeled this month for your chance to join our email list. Signing up will grant you access to our Puzzles Almanac, which will be emailed to you quarterly. This almanac houses the latest in games, reviews, and discounts to all the games that you love. Additionally, anyone that signs up will automatically get 3 free digital games to enjoy with your friends and family. Keep those eyes peeled, Puzzling Company.
Welcome back to Puzzling Company. We are now in the section that is Questions for Creators. In this section, we get to talk to the amazing people that contribute to the games that we get to talk about on the show. Jared, would you like to kind of give a little of a background of the person we got to talk to today?
Yes. I won't mention their name. I'll let them introduce themselves. But the creator and I, we have a mutual colleague / friend. That's how we kind of got to have them on the show. We were talking beforehand. And I think that our creator today just is like way more cool maybe than I am.
Cooler.
Athletic. They're outdoorsy. Don't you kind of like want to be you rock climb. Like I'm like the lame indoor guy.
Yeah, you lame.
But they were talking about they were going skiing and they love to do outdoor biking, and I think I've done a little bit of skiing in my life. The former is absolutely terrifying to me.
Yeah, I don't do much outside other than I started climbing and then I do some running and stuff like that. But that's all decently new.
Yes.
So,
but I just really enjoyed getting to know them. Zach, I know you did too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to know them.
So tell us your name and then tell us a little bit about your company and the games that you created.
I'm Adrian. I'm a co-founder of 11 Puzzles. My story is a little bit long and a little bit different that you might expect because I started making games very recently, actually. My background is in software engineering and people management. I used to be a software engineer and an engineering manager and an engineering director and even a CTO at one company in a couple of different spaces like e-commerce and internet security and advertising technologies. So that was basically my career for a long time. But some time ago, I got with my wife really into escape rooms, and we started playing a lot of them. Then we moved to Scotland for a year. We've met some incredible people there. We started playing escape rooms together. And then, we returned to Poland. We did even more escape rooms here. We invited those friends from Scotland here to Poland, and we did a lot of escape rooms with them. And then sometime later, the COVID struck. So we couldn't play any escape rooms. We couldn't play anything like that. And someone had an idea that maybe we could try some online games and maybe some video games and just play together with our friends from Scotland, just to have this experience of being in an escape room, but maybe just have it online. So we played a couple of games. And I think it was my wife that at some point said, hey guys, there is a lockdown and we have some spare time. Let's try to build an online escape room ourselves. And, at this point, we had no idea how to make games. We had no idea about how to make puzzles. We didn't know anything about that. So obviously we thought that it's a great idea and we are going to do it. So we started designing, we started building some puzzles. And obviously, since the beginning, we had a grand idea of what it's going to be. And, it's going to be huge and there's going to be so many things there. But luckily, we quite quickly realized that a lot of those ideas they don't make sense, or they will take way too much time. We decided to scale back. We've done a couple of levels. We designed a few puzzles. And then we shared that with our friends. And in the beginning, it looked horrible. There was no design, there was no anything. It looked horrible, but it kind of worked. And we shared this with our friends and family. They loved it, and they shared it with their friends. Their friends, they shared it with their friends, and we thought that maybe there is something in it. So we decided maybe to as a side project, make it a game. We hired a graphic designer. We polished a lot of puzzles. We basically made a game of the side project that we did during the lockdown, and we made a game out of it. We had to incorporate to charge for the game, and basically this is how we started. And it was an incredible journey for us because it was so kind of random and out of nowhere, but we really enjoyed it. And it happened. It started over a year ago, I think. And here we are a year later talking about the game, talking about the company, and being really, really excited about the future. So, yeah.
I want to dive in now a little bit, Adrian, to your background in software development. We talk to a lot of creators, and it feels like everybody has their strong suit. They are an artist, or they have a background in education, so they feel like they can develop games, or just a lot of different things. But you, as you said, you have a background in software development. So I imagine that played some advantages in you being able to build this out.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. I think that my software engineering really came into really helped us. When we were building the technical side of the game, that was a really important part because I have a background in software engineering, but my wife, she is a professor of pharmacology, so and she's not a gamer. Then Lee, he's a lab technician. He also works at the university. Helena is in finance, so we have a very different skills and we have a very different backgrounds, but only I knew, at least on the technical side, how to really build it and how to make it. So my technical skills helped a lot with the development of the game, but I don't think it helped much with the puzzle design in general. I think that's one of the things that is quite often quite limiting. Because when you know how to build things, or the saying, when you have a hammer in your head, everything looks like a nail. So I'm used to certain things. I'm used to building ways in a certain way. But I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to work on the game with my wife and with Lee and with Helena, because they have a very, very different view and very different position of what's possible and what a puzzle should be like, and combining those experiences and those different backgrounds that really clicked for us. For example, my wife, she's not a gamer, and she doesn't know what's possible or not, and she doesn't know how usually puzzles or games are built like. So she has so many incredible ideas that are out of the box, and that they are outside the box, and they are just very, very different. Or Lee, he's really into like ciphers and things like that, and his experience helped really, really there. And since I'm a software engineer, my ideas are quite often very technical. I'm a little bit more like how I can use the technology to do some interesting things that will be fun for the players. So I think that's kind of the key for us, that we have very different backgrounds, and we have designed the game using all of those ideas that we had.
So, Adrian, we know that there are a lot of digital games out there. Why did you decide to go with that split team format for this game?
Oh, that's a really great question. I will start with the story and how basically the design of our game started. So right in the beginning, I I dusted off my code editor, and I started coding. I started experimenting with the technology. And I did one really, really simple puzzle where two players had to be online for it. And when one player pushed a button on his end, a part of a solution or part of a clue to solve the puzzle would show up on the screen. And then when second player on his or her screen would push a button, then this player would see also a part of a clue to the puzzle. But to see the whole view of the puzzle, they would have to press the buttons on their ends at the same time. That was the only way to work on that and to solve this puzzle. This really worked really, really well for us, and we thought that this is the key. This is something that we were missing that when we were playing other games, because this required players to work together. And they had to, the players and we had to discuss, we had to talk about what we see on the screen. We had to plan, we had to work together in order to solve the puzzles and move forward. And we just thought that this is the key to fun in our games. And you said that we could have built something else, but we really wanted to build a game that we would like to play ourselves. And this one little prototype in the beginning, it made us think that this is the type of game that we would really enjoy, because we saw a lot of problems in our games. For example, quite a few of them were organized in a way that usually one person was solving the most, and the other people would just observe or even browse internet or on their phones or anything like that. We wanted the experience to be for everyone similar. We wanted everyone to have fun and everyone to be included in the game. Yeah, the game and the design involved a lot of interaction and communication and anything like that. We also wanted the experience to be as close to being in a real escape room as possible. And that's also really interesting, because if you think about an experience of being in an escape room, you think about something a little bit different. And it's very easy to move the puzzles from escape rooms to an online world and call it a day. But we wanted not to move the puzzles and the design of an escape room into a game. We wanted to move the experience of being in an escape room to an online world and into a game. And that meant that we had to work together and we had to cooperate and we had to talk with each other in order to solve puzzles. So that was the key for us.
So talking more a little bit about split format, what is your mindset behind building the puzzles? Do you feel like specific puzzles work better in a split team format, or can any puzzle really work in that type of setting?
That's a difficult question, because it's in a lot of games and a lot of puzzle types and a lot of when we have a print and cut games, when you have a play at home, when you have escape rooms, there has been a lot of things done and a lot of things are ready now. But for a split puzzle cooperative gameplay, there aren't that many games there. So we were in a kind of in uncharted territory. So it's very, very, very different, because it's very easy to take a puzzle like a cipher and just take it online, make it split, give one player a part of the puzzle, give other player a part of the puzzle, and call it a day. But we didn't do that. We didn't want to do that because it would not be fun. And we really, really wanted the game to be first and foremost fun, and we wanted the experience to be more or less equal for the players. So it's a difficult thing. Sometimes some puzzles can be translated really well to this format. Other puzzles cannot, and we don't have those puzzles. Sometimes a totally different set of puzzles is possible, and we were exploring that a little bit. And I think that this format is new And there is so many things that can be done in this format. And like with every design challenge like that, you have to take advantage of the medium. And we didn't want to move one-to-one things that we have played, for example, in play-at-home games or in video games. We wanted to take advantage of the format, and we wanted to take advantage of what we are building online. But there was a lot of challenges because of that. So digging into a little bit of on the design challenges, because there were a few, and obviously you can get a game that's really unequal. One player will focus or will do all the fun stuff, and the other player will only explain some things and relay information or anything like that. And it can be solved in quite a few ways. Sometimes some puzzles are symmetric, so both players have similar things to do, and we have symmetric puzzles, and it's equally fun for both players. So some puzzles, and quite a few of them, are non-symmetric. So sometimes one person will have something cool to do, and the other person will have only some instruction manual or something like that. In those situations, we really worked hard on balancing them well. So if in one place one player had a thing that was more fun, then a few moments later we had another player that would have the fun part, and the first one would have the, let's say, the boring part. The other huge challenge for puzzles like that is balancing the difficulty, actually. Because when you take the puzzle from the real world or from any other source, it can be difficult there, it can be easy there, but it will be completely different in a split design puzzle type thing when players have to just talk together. You have no idea in how many ways people can describe things. It's so much more difficult when you are a player and the other player is describing what he has on the screen, and you have to build a mental map of what this person has on the screen and what is there. It's so much more difficult when the only way of doing that is via communication and via voice communication. So that's one of the things, and we've put a lot of work and effort in balancing that. So quite often we had to make puzzles much simpler, because they would be pretty much trivial when you put them side by side, and you can just see both parts of the puzzles. But when the communication aspect comes in, then it's much more difficult. And the final part that we have found that was really strange for us is sound in the games like that. We haven't thought about that in the beginning, and we wanted to have background music, and we wanted to have a voiceover. We wanted to have a lot of things like that. But we have realized very quickly that if the players have to communicate, we cannot have too much background noise for them, because it's going to be difficult for them. And sadly, we have realized that a little bit too late, or quite late in the process. So actually, it's still in the game, but it's hidden. We have a voiceover for everything. Every part of the puzzle or every comment there is a voiceover for that. And interestingly enough, I recorded my part, and I was old dog. Helena was Ali. Lee was a Cryptic killer, and we've spent a lot of time on that, and in the end we had to scrap it. We had to remove that, and because it just prevented players from doing their thing. It was too much, and there was too much noise to make the game fun. So we had to remove that. It was painful, but we had to do it.
So after playing the game, there's very clearly a style that you did for the art. Why did you decide to go with that distinct art style?
So for me, and basically for the whole team, the aesthetics in general were always really, really important. And we just thought that if we want to build a game and we want to sell a game, it has to look really nice, and it has to look great. there was this friend that I known for years now. And I was always joking that someday we will work together, because I really loved his drawings and his design and what he was doing. And I met him maybe 10 years ago or even more. And he was back then working on HOPA games. Those are hidden object games. I really loved his work. And when we started working on the game, and when we realized that we wanted to have a better experience and we wanted to have a game that looks really, really nice, we reached out to him and we asked if he would be interested in drawing for us. And interestingly enough, at the time, he was working as a software tester, software QA engineer for a company, and he was like, "Hell yes, I love drawing, but I couldn't find any interesting work in this space. So yeah, of course I will draw for you, and I would love to do that." So yeah, this is how it started, and he did some mock-ups for us. He drew some characters, but basically the whole direction and the design and how it all looks like, it's all him. He's just incredible guy, and I really love what he's doing, and I love the direction he took the game in. One thing that kind of was our input, we didn't want the game to look too much as a hidden object game. So because we really like comic books, so we wanted it to be a little bit more comic book like. So that was kind of our the direction that we pushed him into. But other than that, it's all him, and I'm really glad that we made this decision and we started working, because yeah, we love how the game looks like now.
Adrian, what can you tell us about the future of your company, games coming out, big plans that you have, anything that you can or want to share with us?
Yeah, so it's beginning of 2022, and we've decided to switch gears at 11 Puzzles. There is a few things that we have already put in motion that sadly I cannot reveal yet, but 2022 is going to be an incredible year for us. We plan to release our next game early this year, so keep an eye on that. We are going to also expand to other platforms because we think that the experience of the game is going to be much better, even much better when we do it either on Steam or on consoles or anything like that. So we want to expand, and we want to reach more players, and we want to just show the incredible games that we make to more players, and we want them to have fun. So yeah, keep an eye on that, and I think that we will release 2 games this year, and probably early 2023 another game. The Cryptic Killer series is planned to have 5 episodes, and our next game is going to be a second episode in this series. But we also have a couple of ideas for a few others. So definitely some interesting things coming on.
Adrian, the last question we have for you is, what are the games you currently playing? Is there some video games you're playing? Is there board games? Is there other like puzzle style games, digital games? What have you been enjoying lately?
Yeah, so we played quite a lot of play at home games, and I'm a huge fan of exit games and unlocks. So definitely I would highly recommend checking them. We also really like Escape Room the game series, and they are releasing quite a few really incredible expansion packs to the game. And recently we have played Tomb Robbers, where the first part of the game is actually a split puzzle cooperation game. So I would really recommend checking that. It was a lot of fun playing that. Also, we really like Time Stories or Escape Tales, or I just received box 1, and I'm really looking forward to playing this. So yeah, a lot of play at home games. We are also quite into escape room like books, like Journal 29 or the Cipher Files. Or recently we have picked up a book called Vice Versa. And this one is quite interesting one because you actually have two books, and you buy one book and you give the second book to another player, and it's basically a split puzzle cooperative game, but as a book. So that's really, really interesting, and we are really looking forward into playing this. We also obviously play some online games. So recently we've played Scythe Stress from Deadlock online. Or we really like Enchambered. They have, I think, 3 online escape rooms now, and they are all split puzzle games, and they are incredible. I highly recommend checking them out. There is quite a few also video games that we really enjoy in this space, like TikTok, A Tale for Two is incredible. We've played that recently, and it's amazing, and it's a really, really great game. Also, there is We Were Here series that we also really enjoyed playing. I've heard the great things about Escape Simulator. I've heard that it's an amazing game, and it makes me think that this space of split puzzle or cooperative puzzle design area is getting really huge and really big. I read, I think 2 weeks ago, they have published on Reddit a postmortem, and they said that 75% of their players play cooperatively. So that's amazing. Quite a lot of companies and publishers, they really want to stay away from co-op design games because they think that it's not a big market. But Escape Room Simulator, they shared the numbers, and they have just I think they have just passed $4 million in revenue since they have started. They have released game recently, and and 75% of their players are playing co-ops, and they say co-op is great. There is quite a huge amount of players that like to do that. So yeah, I would recommend checking the Escape Simulator as well. I haven't played that yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really, really thankful for giving me the opportunity to be on the podcast and to talk about the game. I'm really honored to be the first one, first digital game that you have on the show. So really, thank you for that. I'm super excited about that, and it's absolutely amazing. If any of the listeners would like to learn more about our games or follow us, we are basically everywhere, maybe except TikTok. So we are 11 Puzzles on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Our website is 11puzzles.com. We have a newsletter also, and I highly recommend signing up to the newsletter, because this is where we are looking for play testers, and this is where we have exclusive deals for the people that sign up to our newsletter. So I would highly recommend going there, and you can sign up via our website. So just go there, sign up to our newsletter, and you will get some freebies.
Well, that's going to wrap us up for this section. Adrian, thank you so much for coming on the show. We look forward to getting to play more of your games in the future, because we had a lot of fun doing that.
Thank you.
If you want to play a game by 11 Puzzles, go to 11puzzles.com. Make sure you spell out the word 11. It's not 11 puzzles. It's ELEVEN puzzles.com.
I'm so proud of you.
I can spell. Did you know I won the spelling bee in second grade? Strange flex. I could humble brag Jared. Gotcha, Zach.
Wow. I can't believe it's so weird. Like, I never brag about anything. You're over here just...
No, you've never bragged. Do you know that when I made it to the second level, though, I missed my first word? It was look. But I thought the lady said loke. I'm sorry. This is a conversation for another time.
Okay, yeah.
I said LOKE, and that's not a word.
Yeah, I was gonna say
anywhere.
that's
Anywhere.
not
It was rather embarrassing. I was really keyed up.
Second grade to you is struggling.
7-year-old. I'm like reliving my 7-year-old self right now, and I'm getting a little frustrated and teary. Anyways, if you want to help out 11 Puzzles, like them on social media, again, go to their website. If you've played this game already, they would love for you to leave them a review. Please do that. Zach, how can people help us out?
Well, you can do many different things. You can now support us on Patreon.
Woo, Patreon.
Just go to Patreon and look at Puzzling Company. We'll be right there. We'll have a link to that as well, so you can always just come and see. We have 3 different tiers.
Zach, now question. Did our core group of players on Patreon, they got to enjoy this experience with us at no additional charge, right?
That's correct. It was free.
I think that's a great benefit. Every single digital game on here, those of us who are in our core supporters, they get to play all these either with us or at their own leisure with their own friends at no additional cost. So just signing up this month for us, you would, in essence, cover the cost of that, playing this game, which I think is really cool. And also a big shout out to our creators who help support us.
Yep.
What else can they do? I know they can leave us a 5-star review, like us on our social media. Where can they find us at?
Yeah, they can do both of those things. You can go to any major platform and leave us a 5-star review. If that's Spotify, if that's iTunes, if that's Google, wherever you can, like us, do that. You can also go to our social medias at Facebook at Puzzling Company or Instagram at Puzzling Company and follow us for more info. And, you can also DM us on both those platforms, and we will gladly have some discussions with you.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for deeper discussion, again, I'm going to throw out the Patreon. We're having good discussions on our Patreon about the things that we're talking about during the episode. If you're looking to do that, it's a great place to be. That's going to wrap us up for season 2, episode 2. Next week, what do we have going on, Zach?
That's a great question. It's hard. There's like cards, and I'm getting confounded. Is it Cards of Confound?
It is.
Wow.
It is indeed.
I figured that out.
Like you really rationalized your way through that. Congratulations.
Thank you. I totally am not staring at them.
We're really excited to talk about Cards of Confound next week. Thanks for spending time with us. For Jared and Zach, this is Puzzling Company.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Puzzling Company and online at puzzlingcompany.com. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, keep puzzling.
This has been a Rogue Media Network podcast.